Hello? Good morning. I'm here. I don't know how loud the music is on your end. Hi Summer, how are you? How are you this morning? I don't know why I'm a little froggy, but I have a drink and I have the book and I'm ready to go. How are you guys? Are you ready to go? I'm gonna fly through this because I do have to go at 11:30 my time. So I will go as fast and as much as I can to get through the book. I mean, we're not gonna finish it, obviously, but let me know how everything is, if audio's okay, and hopefully the music will be okay. We'll find out. This album is called Covered in Cats. So, there we go. You're doing okay? And yeah, I haven't slept, so I think I'm doing okay considering I haven't slept. Oh, hello. Hello, there's all of my laundry there that I have to fold that you just saw. Wow, I forgot to do my cover up thing that I usually do. You guys, pro streamer. At least it's not underwear, and at least it's clean. It's just stuff I have to fold. Let me just tidy up. Oh, and there's a dirty plate over there, and you just really need to ignore all of this. I don't know if I like this song. Well, whatever. Whatever. We're just gonna call that good. You get to see lots of blankets. Cool Twitch Mobile, I love when you just randomly stop video, then I reload with an ad. Yeah, Twitch Mobile is good at that kind of stuff. Yay for laundry. Yeah, I've been up all night doing laundry, pretty much, is what I've been doing. And doing other important things like paying bills while I do laundry. So, yeah. It's been eventful. Okay, so I don't even remember where we left off. Terry, you didn't miss much. It was me covering up my laundry that was all over the couch. And you see my nasty stuff that I usually cover up. There's a bunch of books and just crap laying there, and I used to be really organized. I guess I still am compared to most people, but when I'm busy it just gets away from me. Oh, here's something else you'll notice about me when I haven't slept or when I'm loopy or really tired. I am very talkative and it doesn't make any sense. So there you go. I don't know if I like this music or not, but we're gonna go with it. Does anybody remember what happened last time? Because I don't. Laura? Who even is Laura? Yeah, I don't even remember what happened in the book. I'm a great streamer, you guys. You can still see my laundry. Like I said, at least it's not underwear. That could have been the case. Good thing I folded my underwear before that. God, I don't know. Is anybody there? Are you guys behind in latency, or am I more talkative than everyone else or something? Or my chat is behind? I don't know. I mean, I guess I could start reading and hope that it comes back. I must be tired all the time. Why? 'Cause you're talkative all the time? I mean, I'm sure it's different for everybody. That's just how it is for me. I'm usually not talkative until I get really loopy. I guess maybe it's a tactic to stay awake. I don't know. Talkative and nonsensical. Sometimes I do make sense when I've had no sleep. I get like really productive and like creative, and it's weird. Yeah, let's just start reading and see if we remember what happened, because I don't remember. Okay, here we go. This is where I always don't know where to put the book when I'm reading because of the mic. And okay, we're on chapter 7, and it's called A Startling Assignment. Nancy, what's wrong with you? Hannah cried out as she tried to hurry to the girl's side. As the housekeeper limped toward her, Nancy snapped to attention. I'm all right, Hannah, she said. But Helen's postcard, it brought back the phone call I had this morning. Nancy told Mrs. Gruen about the call, which had ended so abruptly with a cry of pain. Okay, that's what happened. The caller's voice sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it, she explained. Now I think I know who it was. Who? Said Hannah. Laura Pendleton. I believe someone was trying to stop her from talking to me. Mercy! Hannah exclaimed, sinking weakly into a soft chair. Do you think it was one of the Aborns, Nancy? And why would they do such a thing? Nancy shrugged. I'm going to call the Aborn home right now. While Hannah listened nervously, Nancy picked up the phone and dialed information. When the operator replied, Nancy asked for Jacob Aborn's number. The operator cut off for a minute, then reported, I'm sorry, miss, but that number has been temporarily disconnected. Can you tell me when this was done? Nancy requested tersely. I'm sorry, I have no further information. Nancy thanked the operator and hung up. It sounds suspicious, Hannah remarked. But, Nancy, the Aborns may have changed their plans and gone away with Laura for a vacation somewhere else. I know one way to find out, said Nancy with determination. She reminded Hannah of the young couple, Kathy and Jim Donnell, who had helped move the fallen tree at Melrose Lake. I'll ask them if they've seen Laura or the Aborns, Nancy explained. Hannah sighed. You're just like your father, she said, and he certainly is astute. But I'm worried that you're becoming involved in another complicated mystery. Nancy tweaked Hannah's cheek. The more there are, the better I like them. The housekeeper smiled. She said that while Nancy was calling Kathy and Jim, she would put lunch on the table. Fine, I'll help you in a moment. As Hannah hobbled to the kitchen, Nancy got the Donnells' number and dialed it. After 2 rings, a girl's voice said, Hello. Kathy? Nancy inquired. Yes. Nancy gave her name. Do you remember me? She asked. Of course, said Kathy. My family and I were talking about you just a short while ago. Jim and I told them about the Aborns being home, and we all went over this morning to say hello and meet Laura. But the house was closed. Nobody's staying there. Oh, said Nancy, disappointed. She explained that this was her reason for calling, and told of the Aborns' telephone having been disconnected. Kathy already knew this, and added, Dad found a note on the back porch telling the milkman to discontinue deliveries until further notice. Kathy, does Mr. Aborn own a foreign make of car? Nancy queried. Why, no, Kathy replied. She added that her parents thought the Aborns might have planned suddenly to take a short trip somewhere. I'm sure that we'll hear from them in a few days. If we do, I'll call you, Nancy. Fine, said the young detective. Remember me to Jim. Remember me to Jim? That's weird. Goodbye. Deeply troubled, Nancy went to the kitchen and told Hannah what Kathy had said. Chances are, said the housekeeper, the call you received this morning was not from Laura at all. You know a lot of people, dear. Nancy replied that usually when someone had to break a telephone conversation in an abrupt manner, the person called back as soon as possible to explain what had happened. That's true, Hannah admitted. It's very strange. After lunch, Hannah said she was going next door to visit with Mrs. Gleason. Nancy helped her to the neighbor's front porch. Then Nancy backed her convertible from the garage and headed for Mr. Drew's downtown office. I'll report my progress so far regarding his suspects. Nancy parked the car in a lot adjoining a large building where lawyers, doctors, and other professional people had offices. Mr. Drew's suite was on the 5th floor. A few minutes later, Nancy greeted her father's secretary, Miss Hanson. "My, how pretty you look, Nancy," said the efficient young woman who had been with Carson Drew for the past 5 years. "Thank you." Nancy blushed a trifle. "You look lovely yourself." When the lawyer learned that his daughter had arrived, Carson Drew at once asked Nancy to come into his office. "I can see by the gleam in your eyes, Nancy, that you have some information for me." Nancy told him of her interview with Mrs. Farley. "In my opinion, she's a woman of very fine character." Then Nancy mentioned the invitation to the barbecue party at Mr. Herbert Brown's home. "I don't remember any of this, honestly." Mr. Drew raised his eyes and chuckled. "Better than I expected." "My main reason for coming was to tell you something else," Nancy said. She quickly reviewed the latest developments in the Laura Pendleton case. Mr. Drew listened quietly. Finally, he said, "I'm going to turn the music down a little bit. I'm not sure how loud it is, but yeah." Finally, he said, "There's something odd about all this. Nancy, I must leave River Heights on the 3 o'clock plane this afternoon for Cincinnati, but I'll be home by Sunday. Why don't we plan to drive to the Aborns' home later that afternoon and see for ourselves what the story is? They may have returned by then." "Hi, Nick. Good to see you." "Sorry, I just got excited because I saw that you're here." Yeah. I'm glad you love it. Welcome to the read stream. I usually am trying to continue reading, but yeah, I'm distracted. Okay. "That's a grand idea," Nancy exclaimed. Then, knowing that he was busy, she kissed her father goodbye and wished him a successful trip. "I'll call you every night at 8, Mr. Drew promised, and Nancy left the office. On the way down in the elevator, Nancy asked Hank, the operator, if he knew where Hilo Street was located. Mrs. John Stewart, the third suspect, lived in an apartment at this address. "I know the general area," Nancy added. "It's about 3 miles from here on the eastern side of the city." "That's right," Hank said. "It's a classy neighborhood. All high-priced apartment buildings. I believe Hilo Street runs off East Main." Nancy thanked him, then went to her convertible. She drove carefully through the city traffic and finally reached Hilo Street. Mrs. Stewart's apartment house was number 76. Nancy scanned the buildings and found that this one was the largest on the street. It was ultra-modern in design and about 20 stories high. After parking her car, she smoothed her hair and got out. A red-coated doorman nodded pleasantly to the young detective as she entered the building a minute later. Nancy checked the directory and saw that Mrs. Stewart was in apartment 3 on the 4th floor. She rang the elevator button. Almost instantly, aluminum doors slid open noiselessly, and Nancy stepped inside the carpeted elevator. It was self-operated, and Nancy pushed the 4th floor control. This is showing the book's date. Her heart was pounding with excitement. Would Mrs. Stewart prove to be a link in the embezzlement case? Nancy hoped to find a clue this time. When the elevator stopped at the 4th floor, Nancy got out and easily located apartment 3. She pressed the doorbell. A trim-looking maid, a rather harassed expression on her pretty face, opened the door immediately. "Oh, hello," she said. "You must be the walker." "Why, no," Nancy began, but before she could explain, the maid went into the living room, leaving the door ajar. As Nancy, speechless, glanced hastily into the apartment beyond, the maid reappeared. She was leading a pair of frisky black and white French poodles by a gold-linked leash. "Here," she said abruptly, thrusting the leash into Nancy's hand. "Their names are Irene and Frederica. Mrs. Stewart says to take them for a nice long walk." Before Nancy could utter a word, the door was closed with an emphatic bang. Okay. Alright, that was chapter 7. Let's see. Brought back the phone call. Was it a crank call? Well, I wonder if it was. Kind of seems like it. It's awfully suspicious. The operator is in on it. Dial 0 for coercion. Nancy involved in another complicated mystery? Pfft, like that would ever happen. I'm beginning to think this book is not nonfiction. Remember me to Jim. Is that a saying that they said I guess they kept the original writing from the 30s. They just changed the story, maybe? Because this feels very 30s rather than 60s. I don't know. That's what Rob tells me each day. Tara, remember me to Jim. And I'm like, Jim, remember you, Will. Hi, Nick. How are you? It's good to see you. It's cause... Oh my god, is that Gudetama? I've never seen that emote before. It definitely looks like Gudetama. It's cause I'm irresistible. You just had to say hi. It's very true. Checks out. Who can neglect Cthulhu? Hee hee, those are cute. Terrible dog names. I know, right? Frisky Poodles. Yoshi! Claps, chap 7. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. I really don't remember what happened before, so I'm like... Did we even... Is that really where I left off? So Helen just like... Wait, no. Helen left. And then... I guess... Laura Pendleton is like nowhere to be found. I don't know, you guys. Maybe it's because I haven't slept and I just... Oh my god, that Gudetama. Can't get over it. That's crazy. I recall the odd phone call. I don't even recall the odd phone call. Also, Nick, I think you may have followed during my last stream, but for some reason either I missed the notification or I don't know what happened, but thank you for following. And I'm pretty sure I went and followed you. Hopefully the notifications are on, because I did it on mobile, and you know how great Twitch mobile can be. So, anyways, they are Sense and Bears emotes, and I am just peachy, ready for the weekend. Yeah. Understandable. Okay, so, Chapter 8 is called The Frightened Runaway. Nancy drew Dog Tender. This was a new title, the young detective thought. As she burst into laughter, the two poodles began to yap excitedly and dance around in little circles. "Hello, girls," Nancy said to them, and bent down to pat the friendly animals. She then rang the doorbell with determination. This time the door was opened by a tremendously stout woman whose chubby face was framed by a mass of fuzzy brown curls. "Yes?" she inquired coyly. I think this lady requires a voice. "Yes?" she inquired coyly. "Have you had some trouble with the babies? I told Colette to give you explicit instructions." Is that okay? Does that work? Okay. Nancy smothered a giggle. "Are you Mrs. Stewart?" she asked briskly. Of course, the woman said impatiently. Nancy introduced herself and said that a mistake had been made. She was not the dog walker, but had come to solicit Mrs. Stewart's aid for the River Heights Youth Center. "Oh dear!" Mrs. Stewart blushed, obviously flustered. "Colette's made a mistake. I'm sorry." She jerked the leash from Nancy and gave the poodles a loving glance. "Mama will give you both cookies while we wait for your real walker." Nancy cleared her throat, and Mrs. Stewart's glance returned to the caller. "Oh yes, your project. I'm afraid that we'll have to discuss it another time. I'm having an afternoon musicale featuring the most divine violinist, Professor Le Beaujeu. He is expected any moment." Complete with the whatever this is. I don't know. "I understand," Nancy nodded. "Perhaps I can return later when Mr. Stewart is home?" "He left today for a fishing trip in Maine," Mrs. Stewart replied. She added somewhat angrily, "I simply don't understand Gerald. He doesn't appreciate our home life here with the children." Her glance swept toward the poodles. Nancy managed to keep a straight face, said goodbye to Mrs. Stewart, and left. When she returned to her car, Nancy reached the conclusion that Mrs. Stewart was hardly the type to plan a bank swindle. Her poor husband, Nancy thought with a laugh. There was only one more name for Nancy to check today, Mr. Stephen Dowd. She drove out Hilo Street and headed across the city. The man's address was in a business zone which was partly residential, although most of the homes were two-family dwellings. Two-family dwellings? What does that even mean? After a little difficulty, Nancy found the house she sought. A brown duplex situated between a gasoline a duplex, that's what it means. A brown duplex situated between a gasoline station and a tailor shop. She parked and went up the walk. Mr. Dowd's half of the house was on the right-hand side. The young sleuth rang the bell and waited. No answer. She pushed the button again. Still no one came to the door. Maybe I can find out something from his next-door neighbor, Nancy thought hopefully. As she was about to ring the bell on the left, the door was opened by a young woman, a shopping bag in her hand. She appeared startled to see Nancy. The young sleuth smiled pleasantly. "I came to call on Mr. Dowd," she explained. "He's probably at work?" "No, Mr. and Mrs. Dowd are both away now, on tour with a show," they said. "They board here. I'm Mrs. Wyman." "Are they entertainers?" Nancy inquired with interest, and explained about the youth center. Mrs. Wyman said the couple were actors, but she did not know what parts they played. Since moving here 2 months ago, they've been away a great deal of the time. Nancy thanked Mrs. Wyman and said she would call again. "They sound like the type of people I'm looking for to help amuse the children," she explained. Nancy drove away, but told herself they would bear further investigation. It seemed unnatural that they would not have told what parts they were playing. Nancy felt a little discouraged about her findings so far. She realized that she could do nothing else until she met Herbert Brown the next afternoon. "I think I'll go home, get my bathing suit, and head for the club," she decided. The day was becoming very warm. 15 minutes later, Nancy parked in her driveway. As she was about to insert her key in the front lock, the door was opened from inside. Laura Pendleton, wan and disheveled, stared at the young detective. "Laura!" Nancy gasped. She could hardly believe her eyes. "Hello, Nancy," her friend said as Hannah Groon came into view, walking slowly on her crutches. "Come in, Nancy," the housekeeper invited urgently. "Laura's been waiting for you over an hour. She's terribly upset." The three went into the living room, and Nancy sat down on the couch beside the visitor. Before Nancy could ask why she was in River Heights, Laura burst into tears. "Oh, I'm so unhappy," she sobbed. "That's why I ran away." Nancy gently stroked Laura's hair and waited for the hysterical girl to calm down. Then she said quietly, "Tell me everything that has happened since I saw you last." Slowly, Laura started to speak. After Nancy and Helen had left the hotel suite, Mr. Aborn said he had to attend to some business for a short while. He had left the hotel. Meanwhile, Laura and Mrs. Aborn had checked out and waited for the guardian in his blue sedan, which was parked in the hotel lot. "Where did Mr. Aborn go?" asked Nancy. "I don't know, but when he met us a short while later, he was carrying a briefcase. As we started toward Melrose Lake, Mrs. Aborn asked what I had done with Mother's jewelry. When I said it was in my handbag, she asked me to give it to her for safekeeping. I said I would when we got home." "Then you did go directly to Melrose Lake?" Nancy questioned. "Yes," Laura replied. She hesitated, then went on with her story. "The Aborns showed me to my room, and I started to unpack. I found I needed more hangers," the girl went on. "But when I went to the door to ask Mrs. Aborn for them, I discovered it was locked on the outside." "Locked?" Hannah gasped, and Nancy was shocked. Laura nodded. "I was so frightened," she said, "that at first I didn't know what to do. Then I heard voices coming from the Aborns' room. I lay down on the floor so I could hear them better and listened. Marianne Aborn said, 'What did you lock her in for? She doesn't know anything.' And my guardian replied, 'Not yet, but she's a smart kid. See if you can gain her confidence and get hold of the jewels.'" As Laura paused, a terrible thought came to Nancy. Were the Aborns thieves? But they could not be, she argued, if Marie Pendleton had trusted the couple to take care of her daughter. "And besides, I gather the Donnells think they are nice people." Aloud, she asked, "What happened next?" "I thought I must have heard them wrong," the auburn-haired girl said slowly, "but I suddenly remembered Mother telling me always to take good care of her jewelry. so I took it from my handbag and hid it underneath the mattress of the bed. Just as I finished doing this, the door to my room opened. Mrs. Aborn stood there, looking very friendly. She offered to help unpack my bags and admire several dresses as I hung them in the closet. And then, Nancy pressed. Laura said that she and Mrs. Aborn had prepared a tasty dinner, then she and the couple had watched television for a while. Just before we went upstairs to bed, Mrs. Aborn said it would be a good idea for me to put my mother's jewels in the wall safe in the living room. I agreed, and said that I would give them to her in the morning. What was Mrs. Aborn's reaction to this? Hannah asked. Oh, both she and her husband became very angry. They said that apparently I didn't trust them to take care of a few insignificant gems, while they in turn had the responsibility of caring for a penniless orphan. Oh, Nancy, I thought Mother had a lot of money. Mrs. Aborn yelled at me and said I was ungrateful and a big burden to them. They were sorry they had ever agreed to take me. I can't explain how I felt, Laura went on, her hands shaking with nervousness. I was just numb. Then I burst into tears and rushed to my room. Laura said that finally she had fallen asleep and awakened this morning to find she was again locked in. At 8 o'clock, Mrs. Aborn opened the door, acting very friendly, and said breakfast was ready in the kitchen. Was anything said about last night? Nancy asked. Laura said no, that the Aborns had acted as though nothing had happened. But a strange thing occurred after breakfast, Laura stated. Mr. Aborn took a small package from the refrigerator and left the house, saying he would be back later. Before he went, he said I would be sorry if I didn't cooperate with him. I presume he meant to hand over the jewels, Hannah guessed, and Laura nodded. I knew then that I had to leave their house and also get word to Nancy. While Mrs. Aborn was emptying the rubbish, I tried to use the phone, but she caught me and twisted my arm, then hung up the receiver. You see, I was right, Hannah, Nancy exclaimed, and told Laura her theory about the call. Were you locked up again? Hannah asked. Laura explained that before Mrs. Aborn could do this, she had run past her and barricaded herself inside the bedroom, not wanting the jewels to be unguarded. At that moment, the doorbell had rung. Apparently, Mrs. Aborn had not answered it, for the woman had kept quiet for a long while on the first floor. So I quickly took my handbag and the jewels and climbed down a trellis outside my window, Laura said. Once I was on the detour, I was lucky enough to get a ride to the highway, and there I caught a bus to River Heights. I took a taxi to your house. As Laura sat back with an exhausted sigh, Hannah stood up. You're worn out, dear, the housekeeper said. I'm going to get you a cup of hot tea, and you're not to say another word until you've drunk it. With that, she bustled out of the room and returned shortly with a small tray on which was a cup of hot tea and a piece of toast. By the time Laura had finished the snack, color had returned to her cheeks and she looked more relaxed. I wonder if we should report your experience to the police, Nancy mused. What could we tell them? Laura quavered. That's the point, Nancy continued. We could tell them that the Aborns tried to get your jewels, but of course they would deny it all. It would be their word against yours. And I don't have definite proof, Laura said dejectedly. Nancy patted the girl's hand. We'll do everything we can to help you, Laura. You've really had a terrible experience, you poor girl. Nancy, you're a real friend, Laura said. Tears came into her eyes. Mr. Aborn is my legal guardian. I saw the papers. But what am I going to do? You'll stay with us, Hannah said quickly. And when Mr. Drew comes home, he'll know how to handle the situation. Nancy was quiet, but she was doing a lot of figuring. Something mysterious was going on at Melrose Lake. She intended to find out for herself what it was. End of chapter. 8. Yeah, 8. It's in Roman numerals, so I have to think about it for a second. Oh, you followed when I wasn't streaming. Okay. Well, I got an email for it. It was right around the time that I, started streaming. So I was worried that I missed a notification or something. Yeah, Nancy, you ring that doorbell with determination. Determined doorbell ringing. Yay for the voice. It is a fine choice of voice. Two-family dwelling, a dwelling made out of two families. Very gross. House of Bones. Oh my gosh. How could thieves be caring? That would be crazy. She was penniless, but took a bus and taxi? I know, right? When Paige wanted to say terrible, but quick. What? Quickly changed her error. What did I even say? When? Here's another thing about me not sleeping. My short-term memory is shot. Like, it's terrible. Which makes sense, I guess. My ballet teacher emailed me back. Should I see what she said? Oh. What am I doing? I'm wasting time. I'll check it later. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. My coffee is kind of cold. This music is weird. Okay. Hi, ballet teacher. Okay, are you ready for chapter 9? It's called A Valuable Inheritance. This reminds me so much of Clock. I just feel like I'm playing the game. Maybe that's what we should play this weekend. I'm trying to decide what Nancy Drew game to play with my stepmom if we stream, which we're going to try to. My Keegan's going to. I almost said my dad. Keegan is not my dad. That would be weird. Although they have similarities. Anyways, he's going to bring the webcam. I guess we're gonna stream in the new house. I have no idea what kind of setup it'll be. There's like nothing in the new house, but they have internet. We're helping them move tomorrow, I guess. So I'll probably like go to bed immediately when we get there. No time for you, ballet teacher. Plods chapter 8. Thank you. Thank you. I'm bowing. Okay. Well, speaking of, here. Important plug. Since we're talking about ballet. Okay. I will check something real quick because I messaged V. Okay. When you do your connections in your bot, choose Streamlabs also through the list and connect your Streamlabs account. Then if you don't actually... Okay, hang on. I'm confused. I'm trying to figure out something for stream because I set something up, but it hasn't worked. And I would like to figure that out, and I need my stream to be live if I'm gonna get that settled. So I'm messaging V about it because I think she has it set up. Okay. Anyways, we'll see if she is able to answer. Okay. Continuing on, chapter 9. If it had been possible, Nancy would have started out from Melrose Lake at once, but she felt that Laura needed her. Besides, there was a job to do for Father at the Browns' barbecue next day. Helping Dad comes first, Nancy decided. Laura spoke again of her mother's affairs. She used to say I'd always be financially independent if anything happened to her. We'll find out, Nancy said, and then took Laura upstairs so she might shower and rest. In the meantime, Nancy selected some of her own clothes for the visitor. When she appeared at the dinner table, Hannah declared that Laura looked pretty as a picture, and much more relaxed. I am, thanks to both of you, their guest said gratefully. When the meal was finished, the two girls sat out on the Drews' porch. To cheer up her guest, Nancy told Laura of her funny experience with the French poodles while trying to get volunteers for the youth center. The young detective did not mention her real reason for calling at the apartment. Laura giggled. I wish I could have been with you, she said. Tell me, Nancy, have you any souvenirs of the mysteries you've solved? 2 trophies. Nancy displayed a mantel clock and a valuable silver urn. Laughingly, she told Laura that her father often said she would have the house cluttered before she finished her career. Just then, the telephone rang, and Hannah called from upstairs that Mr. Drew was on the line. Hannah hurried to talk with him. Nancy, I've come across some evidence that indicates Mr. Hamilton, or some person working for him in the trust department, was behind the security thefts. A detective is tailing Hamilton, and if he tries to leave town, the Monroe police will be notified. How about the others in his department? Nancy asked. They're being watched too, but not so steadily. Of course we don't want to arrest an innocent man. Nancy said she hoped the guilty person would make a misstep soon so the case might be solved, and told her father what she had learned of the River Heights suspect since she had seen him. He suggested that she keep trying to contact the dads. And that reminds me, the lawyer said. You can forget about Mr. Herbert Brown being suspicious. He explained that Brown was a personal friend of the bank president's and had been cleared. Nancy was relieved to hear this. I'll keep trying to get in touch with the dads, she promised. Next, she told her father about Laura Pendleton's flight from the Aborns' home. Do you think we should report her experience with them to the police? She asked. Mr. Drew said no, that so far the 2 girls had only their suspicions of the couple's dishonesty, even though Laura had overheard them talking about her jewels. You need some concrete evidence before calling in the authorities, he stated. I thought I'd run up to Melrose Lake and do some sleuthing, she said. All right, but keep out of danger, he warned. I'll be eager to hear what you find out. We'll have a conference when I get home and decide what we can do for Laura. Thanks, Dad. A moment later, they bade each other good night and hung up. As the teenage detective started for the porch, she had an inspiration. It was not essential now for her to meet Herbert Brown. If Don Cameron would agree to take Laura as a substitute to the barbecue party, it would leave Nancy free to go to Melrose Lake the next day. I'll ask Don if he'd mind. If he does, well, that's that. Hopefully Nancy dialed the Cameron house. Don answered, and the girl detective told him the problem. Wow, a real mystery, he remarked. If I didn't know what sleuthing means to you, Nancy, I'd say you were just trying to brush me off. But you have me feeling sorry for this Laura Pendleton, too. Okay, if she's willing to go with me, I'll be glad to take her. But I'm sure sorry you can't make it. See you another time. Thanks, Don. I shan't forget this. Of course, if Laura won't go, I'll keep the date. Bye now. As Nancy walked toward the porch, she smilingly crossed her fingers, hoping that Laura would agree to the plan. Stepping outside, Nancy asked, How would you like to go to a barbecue tomorrow, Laura? The girl's face glowed with anticipation. It would be fun, she exclaimed. Where, Nancy? When the plan was explained, Laura said, Oh, but I don't want to take your date away from you. Dawn and I have already arranged everything, Nancy assured her. Then she told of her desire to do some sleuthing at Melrose Lake. At once, Laura said she was afraid to have Nancy go to the Aborns' home. There's no telling what my guardian might do to you, she said fearfully. He has a terrible temper, and if he learns you're helping me... He won't learn that, Nancy said determinedly. Reluctantly, Laura agreed to Nancy's whole scheme. But if anything should happen to you, I'd just die. I'd just want to die, she declared. Before the girls went to bed, Hannah suggested that Laura's jewelry be put in the wall safe in Mr. Drew's study. Dad, Hannah, and I are the only persons who know the combination, Nancy told Laura. It would be a good idea, the brown-eyed girl replied. First, I'd like to show you some of Mother's treasures. She gave them to me before her last illness. Do you have this in writing? Hannah asked. Yes, I do. Why? Then the jewelry wouldn't be part of your mother's estate, Mrs. Gruen answered, and there'd be no tax on it. Laura took a package from her handbag and opened it. She displayed a string of priceless matched pearls, a gorgeous diamond clip and earrings, several jeweled pin sets with rubies, pearls and emeralds, and 6 rings, including one with a brilliant star sapphire. Nancy and Hannah were astounded. Why, this is the most beautiful collection I've ever seen, Nancy exclaimed. She pointed to a ring set with a perfect aquamarine. I love this. Laura smiled. That was Mother's favorite, she said. My father gave it to her on their first wedding anniversary. Thank goodness your guardian didn't find these things, Hannah declared. Finally, the jewels were put into the safe and everyone went to bed. Nancy awoke at 7 o'clock the next morning. After taking a shower, she decided to wear a forest green cotton dress and flat-heeled brown play shoes. Play shoes? What are play shoes? Laura was still sleeping when Nancy joined Mrs. Gruen at breakfast. The housekeeper was using a cane. "My ankle feels almost as good as new," Hannah announced. "I've discarded the crutches." Nancy was delighted to hear this. As they ate, she and the housekeeper talked about the young sleuth's trip. "I'll worry about you every second until you return home," Mrs. Gruen declared. "If you're not here by 10:30, I'll notify the police." Nancy grinned. "I'll try to be here by supper time. If not, I'll call you." A short while later, Nancy battled the early morning traffic through the city. Reaching the outskirts, she took the road to Melrose Lake. Poor Laura, she thought, wondering what the day would disclose about the girl's strange guardian and his wife. If Laura were really penniless, maybe the man thought he had a legitimate right to take and sell the jewelry for the girl's sport. But his wife had bragged about having plenty of money to take care of their ward. After a time, Nancy came to the Melrose Lake detour. Laura had told her there was a sign marked Eagle Rock in front of the lane leading to her guardian's property. Presently, Nancy approached the spot where the pine tree had fallen. Fortunately, it had been removed. She drove more slowly, afraid of inadvertently missing the Eagle Rock sign. Then, sighting the turnoff, Nancy left the detour. And here's an illustration. It says, "This spring was Mother's favorite," Laura said. I never thought of Hannah as, like, that old. Anyways. She had gone but a few hundred feet along the Aborns Road when she decided it might be safer to walk. After parking along the side of the roadway, she started off. This is too dramatic. In a few minutes, Nancy suddenly caught sight of a man walking rapidly through the woods. He carried a small bundle under his arm. Jacob Aborn, she thought, recognizing his profile and the peculiar stoop of his shoulders. Nancy recalled Laura's story of her guardian taking a small package from the refrigerator and leaving the house with it. What was in the bundle, and where was he taking it? "I'm going to find out," Nancy declared. Without hesitation, she quietly plunged into the thicket. Following at a safe distance, she managed to keep the man in sight. "He doesn't seem to be worried about being followed," Nancy thought. "He must not have heard my car when I turned into the lane." She continued her musing. "I'm glad I wore this green dress. It's good camouflage." Just then, a twig crackled under her foot, breaking the stillness of the woods. Jacob Aborn turned and looked back, frowning. He stood a minute, listening intently. Only by ducking quickly behind a large bush had Nancy avoided detection. "I'd better be more careful if I don't want to get caught," she warned herself. As the man continued through the forest, Nancy followed, painstakingly avoiding twigs or loose stones. She kept well behind him. "Wouldn't it be a joke on me if he's just a bird watcher?" She giggled at the thought. Is that a Ghost Dogs reference? Not really, but, yeah. And maybe that package has his lunch in it. Laughing to herself, Nancy picked her way through the woods as she trailed Laura Pendleton's guardian. Suddenly he disappeared behind a clump of high blueberry bushes. Nancy hurried forward. When she reached the spot, the girl detective looked about in all directions. Which way did he go? She asked herself. Jacob Aborn seemed to have vanished into thin air. Okay, end of chapter 9. Such ballet grace. Every time Nancy finishes a case, she steals something to remember it by, pretty much. So she's gonna go after that, like, aquamarine ring or whatever it was. These are the souvenirs I steal. My favorite souvenir is this crate of sausages when I was a sausage sleuth. You guys aren't gonna let me live that down, are you? I know it's Melrose Lake, but my mind is just saying Melrose Place. Play shoes are for playing in, Paige, clearly. I know, silly me. I mean, it even says it in the name. First anniversary is not for jewelry, it's for paper, get with it. Ah, summer! That deserves this. want to change the station. I feel like it's weird. I'm gonna go to chill instead of ambient. She giggled. Who's laughing? Nancy was detected. Okay. Chapter 10 is called The Danger Sign. Okay. Alert for possible danger, Nancy moved forward with the utmost caution. It occurred to her that possibly Aborn had become aware he was being followed and had hidden in the bushes to watch the pursuer. I'll walk into a trap, Nancy thought with alarm. Mr. Aborn will learn I'm spying on him and everything will be ruined. Okay, this is too hype. I mean, I like it, but it's a little too hype for Nancy Drew, right? Wow, this... Ready? Future Riddy? You're gonna clip this, aren't you? I just know it. I'm trying to decide if I should skip this song. Honestly. That probably didn't help the headache that I have coming on. I need to remember to take medicine. The hype music, it's perfect. Highway to the danger sign. I'm just gonna turn it down in my headphones. Okay. Where was I? With great caution, she moved from one bush and tree to another. Laura's guardian was not hiding behind any of them. That's funny, Nancy said to herself. She examined the ground, almost expecting there would be a cave or secret tunnel in the vicinity. I don't know if you guys will get this reference, but secret tunnel, secret tunnel. Okay, that has to be clip for Keegan, huh? Riddy, future Riddy. My clip master, mistress. Yeah. But the earth was firm and in many places very rocky. Finally, Nancy came to a tiny clearing. On the far side, attached to a large oak, was a crudely printed wooden sign which read, Private property, keep out, danger. I wonder if that's where Mr. Aborn went, and why, the young detective asked herself. She waited several minutes, then decided to cross the clearing. She was not stopped. Entering the woods again, she saw a dilapidated shack. The windows had been boarded up, and the roof sagged. One good gust of wind would blow the place over, Nancy said to herself. She stepped from among the bushes and stood in the shadow of the trees, curiously surveying the building. Was it possible that Jacob Aborn had entered it? Nancy's eyes searched the ground for footprints. Directly ahead in the soft earth, she saw the fresh mark of a man's shoe. Instantly, her suspicions were confirmed. Jacob Aborn had come this way. I'll just have a look at this shack, the young sleuth decided. After quickly glancing about to make certain she was not being watched, Nancy hurried forward. Tiptoeing across the front porch, she quietly tried the door. It was locked. It's locked. Nancy walked around to the rear door and found that it likewise was securely fastened. Although disappointed, Nancy was unwilling to give up. Making a complete circuit of the shack, she saw a window from which several boards had fallen. It was too high for her to peer through. Nancy returned to the rear of the building to get an old box that she had seen. She set it beneath the window and mounted it. Pressing her face against the glass, she gazed inside. The room, apparently a kitchen, was bare of furniture and covered with dust and cobwebs. I wish I could get inside, Nancy thought. She was about to climb down from the box when a strange feeling came over her. Though she had heard no sound, Nancy sensed that unfriendly eyes were watching her every move. Before she could turn around and look over her shoulder, a coarse, angry voice barked into her ear. What are you doing here, young lady? Nancy wheeled and faced Jacob Aborn. With as much dignity as she could muster, the girl detective stepped to the ground and regarded the man with composure. His eyes burned with rage. I was merely curious, Nancy replied, and may I ask why you are here? Yes, I'll tell you. I'm looking for my ward. You mean Laura Pendleton? Yes, who else? I thought maybe she was hiding here, but nobody's in the shack. Why in the world would Laura hide in this ramshackle place? Nancy asked, trying to show as much surprise as possible. Search me, Mr. Aborn said, then added angrily, his eyes boring Nancy's. Laura has run away. Run away? Nancy repeated. Yes, yesterday. I'll tell you something about that ward of mine. A crafty light came into Jacob Aborn's eyes as he went on. At times she acts unbalanced. Thinks folks don't treat her right. Indeed? Said Nancy, pretending to be shocked. By now, Laura's guardian had calmed down. When he spoke again, he was once more the pleasant man Nancy had met at the Montawago Hotel. It's for Laura's own good that she ought to return home, he said. Mrs. Aborn is dreadfully upset. She loves Laura just like a mother. Miss Drew, have you heard from Laura by any chance? Nancy was on her guard. Why should I hear from her? She countered. We never met until that accident on the lake, and she came to rescue my friend Helen and me. Mr. Aborn did not pursue the subject. Instead, he said, Laura's a nervous, high-strung girl. Why, do you know she locked herself in her room the entire time she was with us? Wouldn't eat, or even let us try to help her? Terrible, Nancy said, pretending to be shocked. Laura does need help. Secretly, Nancy felt that Jacob Aborn was telling this version of the locked doors story to cover his own actions, in case they came to light. Have you notified the police, Mr. Aborn? She asked, probing for further information. We have a private detective working on the matter, the man stated. We don't want any bad publicity because of dear Marie Pendleton's memory. She entrusted Laura to my care because she knew how much my wife and I would love the girl. Nancy suddenly was finding it hard to concentrate on what Mr. Aborn was saying. Was she wrong, or had she heard a sound inside the shack? This is very strange, she told herself, but I don't dare pursue the subject or Mr. Aborn will really become suspicious. Aloud, she said, I certainly hope Laura is all right. Well, I must go now. I have some friends here at Melrose Lake I plan to call on. She paused, then added lightly, In fact, I believe you know them, Mr. Aborn, the Donnell family. The man looked startled, then recovered himself. Oh, yes, fine family. Say hello to them for me, please. Nancy promised that she would. Since Mr. Aborn made no move to accompany her, she said goodbye and walked rapidly back to the spot where her convertible was parked. As Nancy climbed into it, she cast a glance over her shoulder. There was no sign of Mr. Aborn. Had he gone into the shack? Was someone there? Had he been delivering packages to the person? Nancy started the car's motor and backed out to the main road. As she drove along, her thoughts were entirely on Mr. Aborn. She had no doubt oh my god. She had no doubt but that the man had been lying about Laura's behavior. I must find out more about that man, Nancy decided. Reaching the highway, she stopped at a service station, had the gas tank of her car filled, and asked directions to the Donnell home. The attendant told her how to reach the place, and a short while later, Nancy drew up before a lovely redwood house located well off the road. She got out and rang the front doorbell. There was no answer. Nancy walked around to the back of the house. A gardener was there trimming the flower beds. Howdy, miss, the elderly man hailed her. Looking for the Donnells? Yep. Yes, are they away? Nancy inquired. Yep, they're visiting relatives in Crescent Gardens till tonight. Any message? Nancy said no, that she would call again and thank the man. As she drove away, Nancy was disappointed that she had been unable to pick up any information regarding Mr. Aborn. I don't want to leave Melrose Lake until I've learned something to help Laura, she thought. Mr. Aborn may trace her whereabouts to our home and force Laura to return with him before Dad gets back to town. I suppose he has a legal right to do it. At last, an idea came to Nancy. I'll go to one of the hotels on the lake and engage a room. Then, after it gets dark, I'll do a little more investigating. Fortunately, Nancy always carried an overnight case in her car trunk. It contained pajamas and robe, 2 changes of clothing, toilet articles, and this time of year, a bathing suit. Presently, she saw a large white building ahead of her. Its green lawn sloped down to the sandy beach. On the stone pillar at the side of the driveway was the sign, Beach Cliff Hotel. I think I'll stop here, Nancy decided. She parked her car and entered the pleasant lobby. In a few minutes, she had registered and been taken to a comfortable room overlooking the lake. I'll telephone home, Nancy said to herself, and tell Hannah where I am. As Nancy placed the call, a chilling thought suddenly popped into her mind. Perhaps the detective whom Aborn had engaged had already traced the runaway girl, and knew Nancy had not told all she knew about Laura. If so, Nancy might find that her guest had already been whisked away from the Drew home. End of chapter 10. Private property, keep out. Well, mystery over. Nancy went home and took a nap. What are you doing here, young lady? I'm sleuthing. None of your business. The window was too high for Nancy. Nancy doesn't deal with windows that partake in drugs. Oh, sleuthing, carry on. Nancy promised she would say hello for him, but like everybody who claims such a thing, she never intended on actually saying hi for him. This is true. Okay, I'm seeing what V said. You have to both connect your Streamlabs account through connections in your bot and go into notifications with the left-hand list of your bot and make sure those are on and set how you want. Okay. It's chapter 10. Nintendo. It's chapter Nintendo. Wow, I sounded really stupid when I said that. Okay, let me see if I can, connect your Streamlabs account through connections in your bot. Oh. Wait. What's my Streamlabs account? Oh! Oh yeah, I thought I already did this. So do I have to turn it on every single time? Okay. That's weird. I thought I already did that. Why is this so dramatic? I'm not liking a lot of this music. Let me do some kind of test. I don't know if it'll work. Just be aware, I'm gonna do a test follow. Okay, it worked. So I just had to connect it. That was dumb of me. I already knew that. V's emote is great. I love it. It's about time you followed. I know. Okay. So that should be working in the chat now with those notifications. So. I don't know what I'm doing, you guys. Okay. Back to reading. We have that figured out now. Okay. I like that one. So what? Chapter 11? Oh, this chapter is called Trapped with an exclamation point. Hey, Rachel. Oh my gosh. For a second, I saw your name and it was pink, so I just thought it was Terry, and I was like, Terry, you've already asked me that question. Yeah, hey Rachel. I'm doing alright. I haven't slept, so I'm feeling a little crazy, but I'm okay. How are you doing? It's good to see you. I don't know what I'm doing. I got you guys being a pro streamer. Being a ridiculous streamer. Neither have I. Really? What have you been doing? So the reason I haven't slept, it is a trap, Summer. See? Trapped. Trapped. Okay. I've got a big interview tonight, so I'm all excited. Oh, wow. Well, good luck on your interview. That's pretty cool. Can you say what it's for, or is it kind of hush hush? I haven't slept because I realized how little time I have before I go to Australia. I'm going to my dad's house this weekend to visit them, and I won't be back till Tuesday, and I leave for Australia on Thursday. So I've literally been up all night doing laundry and paying bills and like just trying to get stuff done before I leave that I've been meaning to get done, because I'm not gonna have much time when I get back from my dad's. So it's kind of hush hush, but I might get an article out of it. Ooh, that's cool. Well, keep us updated if you can, if you want to. I'm excited for you. Good luck. Do your best. I'm sure you will, though. Okay, we are reading the Bungalow Mystery, if you can't tell by everything that I already have in chat on my stream screen. We're about to start chapter 11. I'll keep you updated, and if I'm allowed to reveal, I will. Okay, sounds good. This song is called Sass Effect. I guess instead of Mass Effect, it's called Sass Effect. You know that trap will be clipped. Yeah, I figured as much, but I didn't say anything. Alright. Chapter 11. When Hannah Groon answered the telephone at the Drew residence, Nancy at once asked, "Is Laura all right?" "Why, of course," Hannah answered in surprise. She's upstairs setting her hair for the party this afternoon." "Well, tell her to be very careful," Nancy urged. "Mr. Aborn has a detective looking for her." "Oh dear," exclaimed Mrs. Groon. "And when will you be home, Nancy?" "Oh, okay, Summer. Well, thank you for stopping by. Glad to have you. I hope you have a great day." Okay. Yeah. The young detective explained where she was and that she planned to stay at Melrose Lake and do more sleuthing. "I think I may be on the trail of something big." "I don't like the idea of you prowling around the Aborns' home in the dead of night," the housekeeper objected. "I'll be careful," Nancy promised. "I may even get home tonight." "Well, all right," Hannah consented reluctantly. "By the way, Nancy, I had a repairman fix the window in Mr. Drew's study this morning, and also requested the police to keep a lookout for anything suspicious going on in this neighborhood." "Wonderful," Nancy said, feeling relieved. "Any more news?" "Everything's quiet here," Hannah reported, "and Laura seems happy." Laura came to speak to Nancy and was alarmed when she heard that a detective was looking for her. "But I won't go back to those awful Aborns. They can't make me. If they try it, I'll run right to the police." "That's a good idea," said Nancy. "By the way, I'd like to do some sleuthing at the Aborn house. I may want to get inside without ringing the bell." The young sleuth chuckled. "Since it's now your house too, may I have permission to go in and look around?" "You certainly may," said Laura with a giggle. "If no doors are unlocked, try my bedroom window. I left it open a crack, and there's a sturdy rose trellis right alongside it." "Terrific," said Nancy elatedly. After she completed the call, Nancy went to the hotel coffee shop for a hearty lunch. Since it was now almost 1:30, the room was empty. After eating, Nancy put on her bathing suit and wandered down to the beach. A boy in attendance gave her a towel, and Nancy stretched out on the sand. I don't like this. Unaware of the steadfast glance of a couple hidden behind a large green and white striped umbrella not far away. They nodded to each other, then when Nancy was not looking, they quickly left the beach. "Guess we're safe," the woman muttered. "She's here to stay and have a good time." As the strong rays of the sun beat down on the unsuspecting girl, she rehearsed her plan for the evening. When it was dark, she would visit both Jacob Aborn's home and also the shack in the woods if time permitted. I'll miss Dad's call tonight, Nancy reflected. Standing up half an hour later, Nancy put on her bathing cap and walked to the water. She stuck her toe in. The lake water felt icy cold, and Nancy noticed that there were more people on the beach than in swimming. Nevertheless, she waded out to where it was deep enough to make a surface dive and plunged in. Once she was wet, the water was invigorating. After swimming for a while, Nancy came back to her beach towel and dried off. Then she returned to her room, showered, and slept for 2 hours, realizing that the rest would give her more endurance for the evening ahead. Awakening at 6 o'clock, Nancy put on the simple black cotton dress from her suitcase and pumps. After brushing her hair until it snapped with electricity, she was ready for supper. "What will it be this evening, miss?" asked the friendly waitress. Nancy selected steak, a baked potato, and tossed salad, then sat back to enjoy the soft dinner music playing in the background. The orchestra was in an adjoining lounge. Live orchestra at a hotel restaurant? That's some fancy crap. Yeah. Nearby diners regarded the lone girl with interest, for the prospect of the daring adventure had brought a becoming flush to her cheeks. If I'm wrong in suspecting Jacob Aborn of being dishonest, thought Nancy, then I guess I'd better give up sleuthing. Upon leaving the dining room an hour later, she lingered on the porch for a few minutes, watching couples dance. As a red-haired young man began to walk toward Nancy with an invitation in his eyes for her to dance, she hastily went to her room. Chuckling to herself, Nancy said aloud, "Romance and detective work won't mix tonight." Then she changed to walking shoes, sweater, and skirt. The moment it became dark enough for her purpose, Nancy left the hotel in her car. As she drew near the Aborns' lane, a short while later, she turned the convertible off the road and ran it into a clump of bushes where it would not be seen. Switching off the engine and locking the doors, Nancy started down the lane leading to the house, holding her flashlight securely. She found the windows of the house dark. "The Aborns are out, I guess," she told herself. "Well, that means I can do some looking around." Circling the structure cautiously, Nancy noted that the second-floor wing, where the bedrooms apparently were located, was in the back. She found the trellis easily. "I'll try the doors first," Nancy decided, and darted to the front. Gently turning the handle, she found the door locked. Of course. An investigation of 2 other doors revealed that they, too, were securely fastened. "I guess I'll have to climb after all," Nancy said to herself. As quietly as possible, she climbed the trellis. It wobbled and creaked a little, but did not give way. When Nancy reached the window ledge of Laura's bedroom, she found to her delight that the window raised easily. She crawled through and switched on her flashlight. As Nancy tiptoed across the room, which was in disorder, she heard a noise. Halting, she listened. The car was approaching the house. Looking out the window, she could barely make out the figures of a man and a woman who alighted. Who were they, and what should Nancy do? "I'll stay right here," she determined. As Nancy waited tensely, she realized someone was walking up the stairs. Quickly, Nancy closed the window without a sound. As she looked around for a hiding place, she saw a closet and darted inside it, switching off her flashlight. Crouched in a far corner behind some of Laura's dresses, Nancy scarcely dared to breathe. The door to the room was opened a moment later, and the boudoir lamp switched on. Cautiously, Nancy peered out through the keyhole in the closet door. She saw Jacob Aborn. The man went directly to Laura's dressing table. Apparently, he had not heard Nancy, for he did not glance toward the closet. Ruthlessly, he jerked out drawers from the dressing table and emptied their contents upon the bed. As he surveyed the assortment of tiny bottles, boxes, and other paraphernalia, Laura's guardian gave a disgusted grunt. "Last place to look," he said, as if addressing someone out in the hall, probably his wife. "Guess Laura really took the jewels with her. Well, I'll soon have them back." Nancy's heart leaped. There was no longer any doubt in her mind as to the character of this man. She was now certain that his sole interest in Laura was to get possession of her property. Only the girl's opportune escape from the house had prevented him from seizing the valuable jewelry collection. Laura's mother couldn't have known his true character, or she wouldn't have entrusted her daughter to Aborn's care, Nancy pondered. Her thoughts came to an abrupt end as the man moved toward the closet. Fearfully, Nancy ducked down behind Laura's dresses again and fervently hoped that she would not be discovered. Suddenly, as Nancy's legs began to grow cramped, the closet door was jerked violently open. Jacob Aborn looked in. Okay, end of chapter 10. Or 11, sorry. I'll be careful, and I certainly won't be trapped. That last sip was weird. She just changed into her bathing suit in the coffee shop? Oh, I don't know. I missed that. Nancy denying red-haired stranger. So I have to go in like 15 minutes, but I think I'll try going for another chapter. Jacob just wants a pretty dress to wear. That's right. Nothing wrong with that. Stream dance! Okay, let's go for it. Chapter 11. No, 12. Wow, I'm really off. Okay, chapter 12 is called A Black Abyss. As Jacob Aborn stared into the closet where Nancy was hiding. Thanks. The girl detective wished wildly that she were invisible. There was no telling what harm the man might inflict if he saw her. He has such a violent temper, Nancy realized. But Aborn's glance did not stray to the dress section. I guess he didn't want to dress. Instead, he reached up for 2 large suitcases which were on a shelf above the clothes. He set them on the floor outside and shut the closet door. Beads of perspiration trickled down Nancy's neck as she relaxed. Presently, she heard the man leave the room and shut the hall door with a loud bang. Nancy waited a moment, then left her hiding place. I suppose I better leave while I can, she advised herself. But running away from a chance to pick up a clue was not in Nancy's nature. As she heard Laura's guardian descending the stairs to the first floor, she became aware of a woman's voice somewhere below. Nancy decided, I'll stay and see what's going on. Before leaving Laura's bedroom, she gave it a final searching look and shook her head, puzzled. The room was one which Nancy would be happy to call her own. The feminine furnishings and good colonial pieces showed evidence of discerning taste. They did not fit the Aborn's character. Perhaps an interior decorator had planned it. One could believe from this room that the Aborns really wanted Laura, Nancy pondered. It just didn't make sense. Many criminals, Nancy knew, laid the groundwork to lull any suspicion on the part of their victim, then cornered him. But Laura had not even been settled in her new home when the Aborns had begun to persecute her. Soundlessly, Nancy opened the bedroom door and, keeping her flashlight low to the floor, tiptoed along the carpeted hall. Step by step, she edged down the stairway to the floor below. Here, there was no sign of activity, but Nancy saw a light shining through louvered doors to her left. That's probably the kitchen. The Aborns are in there, she thought. A moment later, the woman said, Here's the combination. I'll pack this stuff while you open the safe. Quickly, Nancy stole into the living room and hastily ducked out of sight behind a large sofa. She was just in time. One of the louvered doors opened, and Laura's guardian came into the living room carrying a suitcase. He flicked on a table lamp. Near it hung the small oil painting of a ship. Aborn lifted it from the wall and set the picture against a chair. Nancy's eyes widened as she saw that the painting had concealed the wall safe. Aborn deftly twirled the dial to the left, then several notches to the right, and back to the left again. He swung the safe door open. With a grunt of satisfaction, the man removed several packages of banknotes and some papers which looked like stock certificates. Mr. Aborn chortled and called to his wife, When we get the rest of these cashed, you and I will be set for life, thanks to Laura and a few others. Nancy, startled, almost gave herself away. So Laura did have a sizable inheritance other than the jewelry. But how had the securities reached the safe? Had Aborn brought them here, or was he stealing them from someone else? Nancy felt more confused by the moment. As her thoughts raced, Aborn replaced the loose papers in the safe and closed it. Then he put the money and securities into the suitcase. Giving a tired yawn, he switched off the lamp and left the room. Guess I'll turn in, he called to his wife. Gotta be up early tomorrow and get Fred. You ready? Yes. Mary and Aborn came from the kitchen carrying the other bag. Together, the couple ascended the stairs. Nancy heard a bedroom door above close. Now I must get the police, the girl detective thought. She paused for several seconds after coming from behind the couch to stretch her cramped limbs. I'd better go out the front door, she decided. The bedrooms don't overlook that. Noiselessly, Nancy slipped outside and started for her hidden car. Then a temptation came to her. Why don't I investigate that shack in the woods first? I may have an even bigger story to tell the police. I'll do it. Taking a deep breath of air, Nancy hurried toward the path leading to the dilapidated building. Had she been right about having heard someone inside? Was he a friend or an enemy of Aborn's? Were the packages being carried there, and what did they contain? Loot? Maybe just food, Nancy concluded, but being taken to whom? Beaming her flashlight on the ground, the young detective soon picked up the trail she had taken earlier in the day. It was quiet and eerie as she stumbled along the uneven ground. Nancy became apprehensive once or twice as she heard scuffling noises of forest creatures in the underbrush, but went on. I wish Dad were here now, she thought fervently. Nancy reached the shack without mishap and paused in front of it. A sixth sense seemed to tell her that there was someone inside who needed help. No person would stay in such a place unless forced to. This is no time for me to hesitate, she told herself. As Nancy moved toward the rear of the tumble-down building, she glanced at her flashlight and was alarmed to see that it was beginning to grow dim. Just my luck when I need it the most! In an attempt to save the battery, Nancy switched off the light. As her eyes became accustomed to the darkness, she moved toward the window she had looked through earlier that day. Appraising it, the young sleuth realized that the window ledge was too high from the ground for her to climb through unassisted, even when standing on the box. Undaunted, she began to examine the other windows. On the south side of the shack, she found one which opened from the rickety porch. It was boarded up. This is my entry, Nancy determined. She began searching the yard for something with which to pry off the boards, and finally found a stout stick. Nancy began wedging it between the boards with all her might. The first board offered stubborn resistance. Then, with a groan and a squeak, it gave way. The remaining boards were removed with less difficulty. To Nancy's joy, the window was unlocked. Pushing it up, she beamed her flashlight inside. The room beyond was bare and quiet as a tomb. Well, here comes Nancy Drew, housebreaker and spy, Nancy thought with amused determination. It's certain now no one lives here. When she was halfway through the window, the young sleuth hesitated without knowing just why. She glanced back over her shoulder. A queer sensation made Nancy quiver as she turned searching eyes toward the woods. How silly, she scolded herself. No one's there, it's just nerves. Bravely, Nancy swung herself through the window. Hastily, she moved toward an adjoining room, noting that her flashlight was growing dimmer. Soon she would be left in total darkness. She must hurry. Her light revealed the small room, also empty, its walls and floor dusty from long lack of any occupant's care. Nancy was disappointed to find nothing of interest. I'd better leave and drive to police headquarters, she thought. Just then, Nancy's flashlight revealed a trap door in the floor. Quickly, she moved over toward it, but she had taken only a few steps when an unusual sound arrested her attention. Had she heard a board creak behind her, or was it a night sound from the woods? After hesitating a second, Nancy again started for the trapdoor. As she reached down to grasp the ring in it, her body became tense. This time there was no mistake. She had heard a peculiar sound, which seemed to come from beneath the floor. It sounded like a groan, Nancy decided. She felt cold all over. Someone was imprisoned in the cellar. Who and why? As Nancy tugged at the ring, another idea came to her. This might be a trap laid for her. Oh, what should I do? She thought, hesitating. There was still time to run away from danger. But the fear that some person was in distress gave her the courage to open the trapdoor. As it swung upward, Nancy saw before her a flight of stone steps leading down into complete darkness. A gust of damp, musty air struck her in the face and momentarily repulsed her. Nancy glanced nervously at her flashlight. The battery could not last much longer. Already the light was so weak that she could barely see the steps in front of her. Did she dare investigate the cellar? It won't take long, she thought. She descended the steps and came to a landing. The rest of the stairway went toward the left. Nancy peered anxiously into the black abyss below. To her horror, she saw a man stretched out full length on a bench. His face was turned upward, and Nancy caught a full glimpse of the countenance. He was Jacob Aborn. Okay. That was chapter 12. Thank you. And that's where we're gonna have to end today. So, what'd you think? Leaving on another cliffhanger. And I don't know when I'll be streaming it next. Maybe I'll take it this weekend just in case. Just in case I have a chance to stream like on Monday or something. I don't know. Hi, Jacob. I wish I was invisible, Nancy said aloud, and Jacob immediately spotted her. A wall safe behind a painting. Well, grunt of satisfaction. Yeah, that was a gross phrase. Let's investigate everything, Nancy said. Whoa, something unlocked? Goodness. Nancy sure does like laughing at herself in this one. I know. There's a lot of inner dialogue with Nancy. Thank you. Thank you for the applause. I'm in a weird mood. Yeah, so, okay, that concludes today's reading stream. Thank you so much for being here. Terry, thank you. I really appreciate your support, and, yeah. I'm glad I was able to do it, and, I don't know, there's gonna be a lot of, like, experimenting with stream stuff this weekend, so whether or not that actually turns into a real stream, I'll just have to kind of update you sporadically. But next week is gonna be weird, because, I may be able to do a stream on Wednesday, but I'm leaving Thursday, and I'll probably be freaking out, so I probably won't stream on Thursday. But then after that, if I get the chance, I will try to do IRL streams in Sydney, but we'll find out. No, Terry, I love your read streams. Your read streams are great. They're what, like, legit, you and V are the ones who inspired me to do these, so. And it wasn't, like, with V's, I was thinking about it, but then I saw yours, and it, like, really gave me the push to do it. So, yeah. You are an inspiration. So there you go. You can't deny that. Yeah, so, just stay posted with Discord and stuff. I try to post on Twitter, but half the time it doesn't work, and then mostly you guys aren't on there, so I don't know what the point is, really. Victoria read streams are wonderful. It's true. She needs to do more. I really like when she does the files, Nancy Drew, so that's part of the reason I started with the files book. But anyways, okay. Well, that is a good place for me to end. Whatever, Terry. I'm not comparing. I'm gonna go get my hair fixed. It's gonna be more blue, hopefully. So. And, hopefully I'll be able to stay awake during my hair appointment. Okay, I better go. But thank you so much, Terry. I'll just, text me, whatever. You'd what? I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. You're right. I'm right? I don't know, I'm gonna fall asleep. Okay. I love you guys. Thank you. I'll see you hopefully this weekend. Okay. No comparing. That's right. Bye.